Can I go ahead?
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this breastfeeding is a boon for a lifetime. It's a lifetime boon, and we're going to try to ensure it. This is a workshop for moms to be organized by I Decide with collaboration with Sitapati Clinic and Hospital. And I welcome all the panelists and all the participants to this workshop. We have with us here Dr. Uma Ram, who's the director and senior OBGYN at Sitapati Clinic and Hospital in Chennai. She's passionate about empowering women with health information so that they are able to make an informed choice. So welcome, Dr. Uma. And we have Dr. Rekha Sudarshan. Dr. Rekha Sudarshan is a marathon runner and therefore a fitness enthusiast too. And she looks it. She is a psychologist, childbirth educator, and an international board certified lactation consultant. A university rank holder both in the undergrad and in the post-graduation, Rekha has about 18 years of experience in the field of childbirth education and lactation. She has also authored a book in Tamil about pregnancy, which has sold about 9,000 copies. Welcome, Rekha. We have with us Dr. Gandhimati has joined? No, not as yet. Oh, we have with us Dr. Rita Gupta, who is a founder, member of BPNI, an IYCF national trainer with BPNI, and she is a general physician and currently the program coordinator for the I Decide project.
Hello.
And Rita's husband is one of the founder members of the Breastfeeding Promotion Network of India and is currently also the central coordinator of BPNI. Both thanks to Rita, who has been a big support to make this a success for on.
Nirmala, your connection.
But before we can continue, is that okay, Dr. Uma?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because yeah, I don't find her here, so I should try to call her.
So,
Yes.
sorry, I lost your voice in the last few sentences that you said.
Yes, I will try to call Gandhimati so that she's on board before we start. And it's a very short program.
I think we lost her connectivity.
Is it okay?
Let's start. Yeah, let's, I think.
Yeah, okay. So I think if it's okay with you, I can start. I mean, it's just that.
Yeah, I will just hand it over to you. So
Dr. Jayashree Gajraj ma'am has just texted saying that asking Dr. Uma to start because Gandhimati ma'am will join later.
Yeah.
Do you want to say a few words first?
Uma, go ahead, Uma. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fair enough. But do you want to say a few words since you're...
Not really. Just a welcome to all those who have joined us and happy to see such a good number.
Yeah.
Welcome, Dr. Jayashree. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Thank you very much to BPNI for this initiative, and we are happy to be a part of this initiative. And thanks to all of you who have joined in to this discussion. We hope that it will be interactive, and any questions or any queries that you have, if you can just type it into the chat box, also we will be able to pick it up and respond to you. So because then we will make sure that we don't miss anybody's queries, since the videos are not on and we may not know who's ready to ask a question. So I'm just going to do a short presentation to set the tone, focusing on the obstetrician's role. I think all of us agree that breastfeeding and the support for breastfeeding is something that goes on 365 days of the year. It is just that the first week of August, everybody's attention is focused on breastfeeding during the breastfeeding week, and there are a lot of activities that happen around this week. And I think it's a good thing to have these kind of weeks, because energies get refocused, new ideas happen, and each year there's a theme. So that theme then helps us focus on specific aspects of breastfeeding, and we learn from that as we go on. So I'll just share my screen. Okay, and do a short presentation on an obstetrician's role. I mean, I think one of the favorite statements that actually Rekha makes, and I have borrowed it from her, is that the moment a child is born, a mother is born. And so it's when a woman is pregnant and she's coming for her antenatal care, there are many concerns that fill her mind. And in the first half of pregnancy, actually, breastfeeding may not be the topmost of a concern. I mean, we all know it's going to happen, but the concerns are many others, such as, is this baby growing well? Is my baby formed normally? Am I going to be able to cope with pregnancy? And somehow breastfeeding is just assumed as something that will just happen and it will just take place. And most often it does, but it's not something that gets focused attention very often during the antenatal period. And therefore, the question is important as to who brings up this discussion. So there are some women and couples who are very focused, who have questions, who will, make religious note of their questions. And amongst that question, in the latter half of pregnancy, breastfeeding will come up. But if it doesn't, I think it's every obstetrician's responsibility to bring up that discussion about breastfeeding with the woman and to ask, are there any concerns? Do you have any views? And address these concerns and take on board the views for breastfeeding. And also, it's important that we examine the woman's breast and see that, a flat nipple or an inverted nipple does not come as a surprise when we first try and put the baby to the breast after the delivery is over. So preparing the woman, the mother-to-be for breastfeeding is certainly an important part of an obstetrician's responsibility. And antenatal sessions, in addition to the initial conversation that is initiated by the obstetrician, I feel is extremely important. And the reason I say that is, in a busy obstetric clinic, there is only so much that we can talk about, even if we have the interest and the inclination to actually address the issue. And very often, once the initial conversation is initiated, there are many more questions that may come to mind, which need to be answered. So in our place, we have, in our setup, we've had classes on breastfeeding for a very, very long time now. And initially, we used to do the breastfeeding sessions in the postnatal period. But we realized that young mothers need most support in the immediate postpartum period. And at that time, because of the fact that they're already coping with change and coping with coming to terms with the routine or lack of once a new baby is born, they don't have the time or the inclination to come for a class or a session. And therefore, we have shifted the breastfeeding sessions to the antenatal period. And we encourage that besides the mother, the elder in the family, whether it is the grandmother to be or an aunt or whoever is going to be a primary caregiver also comes in, because very often they have their own views and these views have a strong influence, and it's important that everybody is on the same page to give the maximum support to the woman. For this reason, we shifted the antenatal classes, and COVID has had many negative impacts, but one of the positive impacts of COVID has been that since the sessions are online, people, other members of the family are able to attend, husbands are able to attend more often, because it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to take time out and come into the hospital. So this information about breastfeeding can be shared in many ways. And of course, this year we have not had any large breastfeeding week celebration in the hospital, but we have always had sessions where new mothers come and share their experiences, as well as members of our own staff who have become new mothers share their experiences. And we do, activities like this where we ask our staff to come up with innovative ideas. And this was like a snake and ladder with different types of legumes. And this then gets explained to the women who are under our care when they come through the hospital, so that they get an understanding of what is the nutrition that is important in the postpartum period, and what are the nutrients which will improve during pregnancy and lactation. So these are ways of information sharing. I think it gets driven by the obstetrician or the hospital, but doesn't necessarily mean that she herself has to give all the information. This can be shared. Posters are another thing that we have found is extremely useful, because inevitably you wait to see us, and when you're waiting, if you have posters which give you information or share, and we've had a lot of generosity from women who have delivered with us, who have very willingly given their thoughts and shared their images, so that those are on display, and that works to motivate other women. Now, clarifying misconceptions is another, I think, is probably a very important role of an obstetrician, because there are situations where there can be problems. Infections is one of those situations, and in the current context, especially when the pandemic started, there was a lot of concern about, if I'm COVID positive, can I feed the baby? If I have tuberculosis, can I feed the baby? If I have hepatitis B or HIV, what happens? So these are very specific situations, and here most of the time breastfeeding is allowed, and except where we are worried about mother-to-child transmission. And certainly in COVID, you can continue to breastfeed provided you take the minimal precautions that are required. So this is again something that needs to be done well. There are a lot of women who are on medications, and then there is a concern. If I'm taking an antihypertensive, if I'm on medicines for diabetes, if I have these kind of pregnancy complications, can I breastfeed? If I'm having, there are many mothers who are on anti-epileptic medication, some who are on medicines for depression or anxiety, and then there is a concern, can they breastfeed? Again, majority of the times with most of the medicines, breastfeeding is allowed. Of course, with some mood stabilizers and antipsychotic medication, we would prefer that breastfeeding isn't done. because of the fact that these medicines get secreted into the breast milk, and we don't want to have an impact on the baby. But even there, sometimes we do encourage, because it improves the mother-to-child bonding, and there is a certain overwhelming benefit to breastfeeding. We can time the medication and then advise that breastfeeding is refrained at, maybe 2 to 3 hours after the medicine is taken, and the mother is encouraged to feed maybe just before or immediately after the medicine is taken, so that the dose that goes through the breast milk is reduced. So there are ways in which this can be implemented, and again, the support is something that we need to provide. The two other concerns with a lot of which many women may have. One is about body image, because if I breastfeed for a very long period of time, what happens will it isn't often, but it can be a concern. Sometimes they don't voice it, and sometimes it comes up in conversation. So those are things that need to be addressed. Return to work is a very real concern. And what happens if I want to exclusively breastfeed the baby, but I have to return to work within 4 months? Then what happens? So these are conversations that are best had ideally before delivery or in the immediate postpartum visit, because then we can talk about how breast milk can be pumped and stored, and a fair amount of time can be spent to facilitate how a young mother, new mother who needs to return to work early can continue to exclusively breastfeed the baby, because many of our work environments don't necessarily support pumping, and logistics may not allow you to pump at work and then send the milk back home. So it's a question of managing the pumping and the logistics, and here again we can be supportive of you. Sometimes there are complications that can happen in delivery, unanticipated, when there can be excessive bleeding, or the mother may need to go into a high dependency unit where there is initial separation of the mother and baby. Sometimes it may be that the baby goes into the neonatal unit for some reason, and immediate baby to breast may not happen. But barring these two situations, almost all the time, it is important to encourage immediate skin-to-skin contact, and as well as ensuring that the baby gets, the baby latches on to the breast, ideally within 30 minutes, but if not, at least within the first 60 minutes. And in a normal birth, that immediate under 30 minutes is almost always possible, except when the baby needs some care. But sometimes in a cesarean section, 30 minutes may not be immediately possible, and therefore, at least within the first 60 minutes, we would encourage that the baby is put to the breast. Now, if there is a medical need why the mother and baby needs to be separated, I think those are situations where the mother needs tremendous amount of support, and you can still, do things like pump so that the lactation is set in. And increasingly neonatal units encourage that the mother holds the baby even if immediate feeding is not possible. To skin contact is something that happens, and the value of kangaroo baby care is something that is completely understood today. The first 2 to 3 days are, in my opinion, the most crucial, because the mother is very exhausted, tired. There is a concern that there isn't enough milk for the baby because the colostrum may just be setting in, and relatives and people who, well-meaning but worry that she's not having enough milk, should we not be giving formula? So that is the most crucial time where we should be able to support, and everybody in the team must speak the same language so that we can support the initiation of breastfeeding. Now, the last point that I want to emphasize is about mood. And again, and as I said, in the first 2 to 3 days, there is exhaustion because you may be very tired. And again, after the woman goes home, because there's lack of sleep at night. There is sometimes a lot of women get exhausted. There's a lot of pressure that is put either on themselves or by the family that there isn't enough breast milk. And sometimes we have women who come back for the postnatal review in 2 weeks, completely, out of it because they feel that they are failing as mothers. So I think that support is very, very crucial. And mood is something that we must learn to be aware of. And as young mothers, it's common to feel a little low, to feel tired, to feel teary. But if this extends beyond 2 weeks, if you're feeling extremely depressed or if you're getting like panic attacks, those are not normal, and that may then impact breastfeeding as well. So those are things that you need to be aware of, to reach out so that help can be given. It may not always be rosy. Like I said, some babies are a dream and some mothers have a very easy path where the baby just latches on, suckles, the milk is flowing, there's absolutely no problem. And then there are some where it is extremely rocky, the baby simply refuses to latch, there isn't enough milk coming in, or there may be a breast abscess or mastitis that sets in later, and the entire lactation period, the first few weeks, can be quite stormy. But if it is stormy, it's not necessarily your fault. It is just that for some babies and some mothers, the initial establishing of lactation is a little rocky. And again, I feel here, because there has been a relationship with the obstetrician and the obstetric team over a period of months, it becomes our responsibility to handhold these mothers through this period and help them get past it and continue to breastfeed, even if sometimes we temporarily need to stop. So, I think so. These are the different points in time where we come in and we play a role in establishing breastfeeding. And I personally feel that the obstetrician has a much larger role to play than the pediatrician, because the pediatrician is a new face who comes in and the mother has a much stronger connect. So it's not at all unusual for the mother to ask us, this was the pediatrician's advice, but do you think it's okay? And so I think, therefore, that we have a fairly large responsibility in ensuring that the breastfeeding experience is good. And if it is established well, then it can be sustained for the length of time that is most beneficial to the baby. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Uma. That was a very beautifully explained presentation on the role of the gynecologist and bringing up the discussion, addressing concerns, addressing their views on infant feeding, examining the breast, and then going on to also have innovative games and posters and ways to provide information to the family to clarify misconceptions, and also to sound them out on the possibility on how they can deal with postpartum depression if they do have. And to be a norm, it can be difficult for some people, but definitely there are people around to help. And I think what gynecologists can do can go a long way to providing that confidence to the mothers that they are ready when they deliver the baby. And now I will move over to Dr. Rekha Sudarshan, who's a lactation consultant, and she will talk about the role of the lactation consultant in helping mothers with breastfeeding issues. And she has more than 18 years of experience with childbirth and lactation. So over to you, Rekha.
Thank you, Nirmala ma'am. But I just want to place it on record that I'm not a doctor, though I'd have loved to be one, but I'm a proud paramedic. So just, I will just get the presentation. So just a minute.
While she's getting her presentation on the screen, I would request all participants, if you have any queries, any doubts that you want to address to Dr. Uma after her presentation, you may please post it in the chat. Oh no.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
No,
So,
no. I can't see. We can't see your. Yes, now, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we can see Rika.
Yes. So thank you so much for having us over. Yeah, thank you so much. So 9 on 10 pregnant women, as they walk in for labor, on one side they have a bag which has clothes for them, clothes for the to-be-born baby. But many times, on the other hand, they have a bag which might have a formula tin, a flask, a breast pump, and according to them, the best bottle in the world. So in their mind, if they've decided to give the baby something other than breast milk, it's very tough to talk to them about breastfeeding. So the role of a lactation consultant starts much earlier, and taking off from what Dr. Uma Ram shared, the antenatal classes do come in handy. So I was just reading about this, and so the recent published review of 16 studies, the role of a lactation consultant definitely plays a bigger, in the bigger picture, it does play a big role. So having said that, at Sitapati, we do antenatal care. So the prenatal education and preparation is done. As much as we insist that husbands come in for the labor class, we insist that mothers, mothers-in-law, and grandmothers, if they're there, attend the breastfeeding class. Because we're convinced that they're big-time policy makers. Because anytime the baby cries, the only thing the new mother hears is you don't have enough milk, you don't know how to feed. Every time the baby is past too much urine, feed the baby. Baby is not past urine for the past 6 hours, feed the baby. Baby has been sleeping, wake him up and feed. Baby is not sleeping, feed and make him sleep. So at one point, the mother's like, do I look like a milk-making machine? Do I look like a cow? Is there anything else that you can talk about other than breastfeeding? So it's very important that we call the family in. Of course, the father, the husband, and of course, the to-be father is very important in that role. And immediately after birth, we do initiate breastfeeding during the golden hour. And as Dr. Uma Ram said, yes, if it's a normal vaginal birth, we do it within the first half hour in the labor room on the labor table itself. And if it's a cesarean, the baby is put on the breast in the theater or max in the post-operative ward. And postnatal care, all the nuances regarding breastfeeding is taught to them within 24 hours after their delivery. I do come in because the deliveries happen at different times, but fortunately our nurses are very well trained. So I do keep a tab on that. So, over phone, we do give support. I mean, the nurses do give me an update of what's happening, but 1 or 2 visits, the new mother knows what to do. Nurses are our interface, and nurses are trained on breastfeeding on a regular basis, and they are taken on rounds to ensure that all of us are on the same page. We as a team in the hospital believe in empowering nurses because they are the most important people there. And as I said earlier, we do adhere to guidelines, but what is very important is, in addition to the new parents being in sync with the baby being put on the breast during the golden hour, the obstetrician and the nurses, the anesthetist is also in line with it. So it actually gives us a lot of help because we're all on the same page. And of course, the pediatricians, we don't even have to mention their support here. But as a team, we do ensure that the breastfeeding happens. Of course, the most important points we do teach, which all of us do agree, is the position, posture, and latch. The green line that I've drawn here is to ensure that all mothers know that the ear, shoulder, and hip has to be in one straight line when they feed. Because many mothers, I mean, though we do tell them that, please sit and feed. Yes, they do sit. They sit like queens. They have a pillow on the back, pillow on the lap. Recently, I saw a mother having a neck pillow. All this they have, but they have the baby facing the ceiling and only the face turning to the mother's breast. So obviously they'll end up with severe soreness. So right from the beginning, even during the antenatal classes and right after their childbirth, we do talk to them about this and we give them a lot of importance on this. So ear, shoulder, hip of the baby has to be in line, baby's tummy to mother's tummy, and baby comes to the breast. The breast never goes to the baby. Recently, I saw a mother bending down and feeding, and when I asked her, she said, I asked her, why are you bending so much? She said, can't you see the baby has back pain? So, we really had to tell her the baby doesn't have any back pain. Did the baby communicate to you? So the baby comes to the breast. And the most important thing we do teach them is the areola goes inside the baby's mouth. So in the antenatal classes, we use a lot of models, the breast model, we use a doll, and we teach them. And we also have the stomach sizes, like a marble and a ping pong ball size. So just to give this perspective and this visual memory in a mother's mind, because it's very difficult to talk to a new mother after she delivers, because the last person she would want to see is me, because I'm going to constantly keep talking to her about the nuances of breastfeeding. So we teach all this, before she delivers. And of course, we don't recommend lying down and feeding, but if she really wants to, we do insist that a primary caregiver is around. So even if the mother sleeps off or the baby sleeps off, the baby is taken off the breast and the baby is put in the burp position and the rest are taken care of. The positioning of the baby, as I said earlier, the areola going inside. We are very, very particular about this because we want the breastfeeding to be a painless experience. So we do teach them this. And of course, the different positions, the cradle hold, cross cradle hold. So the first 2 days, we teach them the cradle hold, but just before they get discharged, couple of feeds before that, we do teach them the cross cradle hold to ensure the diagonal distribution of weight so they don't land up with any pain and use that as an excuse to stop breastfeeding. So the football hold, sideline hold. But we've also realized that all these positions, posture and latch, we do teach them, but eventually the mother and the baby land up with their own position, which might not pass my certified eye. But is breastfeeding happening? Is the mother happy? Is the baby, healthy and growing? We have absolutely no issues about how they're feeding, but these are things that we do teach them. Of course, we do ask them, every room in our clinic, we have a 1 foot stool just to ensure, and we also have a chair. It might not be a typical feeding chair, but it definitely serves the purpose. So we do ensure that they sit on the chair and we put that 1 foot stool under their feet just to give that elevation and also to ensure that they don't land up with any edema in their feet or any low back pain. Of course, baby's head support is taught, so to ensure that there's no kind of pressure or a compression on the baby's head. And this is one slide that I really love, and we also teach that. So about the hard palate, soft palate, we teach them about where the sucking reflex is and how much it can gag if it goes deep inside. And as a policy, to many pregnant women and to lactating mothers, I also teach them finger feeding to ensure that they get a hold of it. And of course, if a mother complains of soreness, we do teach them difference between how the nipple looks after a good latch and how a nipple looks after a bad latch, the lipstick look. Of course, this is one interesting thing that we do teach them, because many mothers come and ask us, how do I know my baby is hungry, or what are the cues? So the 3 different things we teach them. So the early cue is the mouth open and the baby rooting or searching. And the in-between cue is, the baby is just getting ready, with hands and feet just relaxed or just looking at you. So hand to the mouth. And please don't wait for the late cue where the baby is irritated and the baby is crying. So these are a couple of things that we do tell them. But again, as I said, eventually the mother goes with a lot of knowledge, but the practical thing comes with practice. This is something which is very interesting, that what a mother should know, that the baby takes slow, deep suckles, sometimes pausing. And then, many mothers have this doubt of, I don't hear the baby swallowing. So we do tell them, give them the tip on that. And and then the breast is softer after feed. So all these are things that we do teach them. And of course, this is one of my most favorite slides, which I do talk to them about during their antenatal period itself. See, out of our experience with breastfeeding for many years, we found that many mothers dread to breastfeed, not because of the process of breastfeeding, but because of the pain the breastfeeding and the soreness can come with the other parts of the body, not just with the breast and the nipple. So obviously, because though we tell them to sit on a chair, they might just, as they wake up, they might just roll on a couch, they might just sit on a, bed. So we do talk to them about the importance of exercise while they are breastfeeding. Yes, they do come up with excuses of saying that they're sleep deprived. It's not an excuse. I know it's a reality, sleep deprivation. And then, the first thing that they want to is just go take some rest or get away from the room. So we do tell them, give them tips like out of 8 to 10 feet, select your 3 feeds. Feed the baby, hand over the baby to your primary caregiver, let them help burp the baby or change the diaper. Just take 10 minutes off there. Just extend your arm straight, pull it closer, reverse it. So works on your forearm, just 10 counts there. Or extend your arm shoulder length, do some small circles. Or extend your arms up like a V, do some. So I do demonstrate this in the breastfeeding class and also teach them some, like a Bhujangasana or, upper dog position. So all these we teach them and also tell them to go for a 10-minute walk. This is right after they deliver and they're up on their feet. So what happens is not just with the endorphin hormone release, but they also feel good and lighter. Just right after 3 feeds initially on an average. And of course, the postnatal classes starts and we tell them to do regular exercises 4 weeks from the date of normal delivery and 6 weeks from the date of the cesarean. And even there, in addition to the abdomen exercises and the back strengthening exercises, I do teach them exercises to strengthen their chest muscles, to strengthen their shoulder and their back. So all this will ensure, this is all in the periphery, but this actually will add on like a complementary thing to ensure that the mother sustains breastfeeding. We do emphasis and advise not just the mother, the family, on teaching them to say a big no to the prelacteals. Because we tell them the importance of colostrum, we tell them the importance of the breastfeeding process, and all these prelacteals like plain water, sugar, fruit juice, infant formula, tea, honey, fresh butter. I've missed out on the most important thing, gur. That's jaggery. So we tell them not to give that. And of course, they do adhere to it, but sometimes it can happen on the slide, but we do insist that they don't give them. And advice to family members is, breastfeeding is, though we talk about this, breastfeeding is not easy. It's not easy at all, but we try to make it as easy as possible. So the family members help to play a very big role here. So the social and cultural beliefs plays a major role. A father's attitude. So that's one of the reasons why we call the husbands into the labor class and we talk to the husband. So in many rooms, when we go into the room to talk to a mother and then with her consent, I say, can I examine your breast? The husband will walk out. So I will always tell them, please stay here. It's your baby. I want you to be here. I want you to know what this is. And please stay. And there are some nurses who will always also tell them, sir, can you just go out? I tell the nurses, no, let the husband be here. Let the father be here. Okay. So the father's attitude to breastfeeding is very important, and most important, father's awareness about the benefits of breastfeeding. And the new grandmother's history of breastfeeding plays a big role. There are a lot of new grandmothers who say, oh, I didn't breastfeed my baby. I mean, she's fine. So why should she breastfeed? So that plays a big role, and peer group. I always request and I always tell my new mothers or the pregnant women that when they come up and say that, my friend said that she's not feeding, I say with due respect to your friend, why don't you just relate with people who are pro breastfeeding and not against breastfeeding, on a lighter way, but the peer group plays a big role here. So this is what we do from Sitapati. What are the mother and the family equipped with on discharge? Number one, how to hold the baby right. Very important. Position, posture, and latch. And pointers on how do I know my baby's got enough milk? Or this is one question that bothers a new mother and the family the most. And signs of dehydration and how to burp the baby, how to swaddle the baby, and when to top feed. We're very particular that this happens under hospital supervision. We're very particular that this is used as a respite and not as a primary nutrition point. And of course, the confidence to continue breastfeeding. So every new mother who walks out of the hospital, the skill sets are given. And of course, special care during COVID was given and is still continuing. We treated the COVID mothers. the same as normal mothers. We wore our PPE, we went, we taught them the breastfeeding, the nurses were there just to ensure that. And we also made it very clear to a COVID positive mother that the benefits of breastfeeding will outweigh the concerns that come with COVID. And since March 2020, we've been providing video consultations to ensure the new mothers are handheld. And so this is also to ensure that unless it's an emergency, the mother doesn't walk in with a newborn. But we do give them we've been providing video consultation, and that's actually helped them a big time. So that's our part, not just as a lactation consultant, but again, I would insist as a team, we work on this. So my only request to everybody here, as the world says, let's protect, promote, and help sustain breastfeeding. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rekha. That was a wonderful presentation, very educative. And as an IYCF trainer myself, I'm very happy to see the points that you're stressing on in the counseling and the help that you're giving. And congratulations to the hospital for the team approach. So Dr. Umaram, really congratulations to all of you at Sita Pate Clinic for giving that kind of an experience to the pregnant mothers and to the new mothers. So if Rekha can share that video, that presentation with all of us, it will be very, very helpful. Very helpful. It's an excellent presentation. And thank you so much. And I'm sure the mothers would have been encouraged by watching that and with your explanations. We will now go on to how mothers can be helped. Now, mothers in Sita Pate Clinic may be all prepared and the clinic is ready to help them to breastfeed, but that is not the case with lots of other institutions where they deliver, where babies are taken off and given top feed without the mother's knowledge. So Breastfeeding Promotion Network of India had initiated the I Decide portal. And the I Decide portal will be explained by Dr. Rita Gupta. And I welcome all of you to that. And Dr. Rita, you can take on now.
You're muted, ma'am. Dr. Rita, you're muted.
Rita, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Rita, can you unmute? Unmute yourself. You're muted. Rita, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I didn't. Yeah. Thank you, Nirmala. So yes, friends, good evening to everybody. I will take you to the I Decide web portal, which is a new initiative by Breastfeeding Promotion Network of India about feeding the baby. So I'll share my screen now. Okay, I was just looking for a slideshow, but it's okay. Everybody can see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So why we decided to, start this web portal? Because we understand that pregnant moms and dads have the right to accurate and unbiased information during pregnancy. Why I say unbiased? Because we have seen that baby food companies are giving biased information to young mothers and pregnant mothers. So but they need accurate and unbiased information, which helps them to make an informed decision about feeding their baby after birth. But we have also seen that often feeding of newborns is not talked about during pregnancy. and which can lead to a struggle after the baby is born, because the mother is overwhelmed, the family is overwhelmed, and many a times feeding decisions are imposed on the mother without her consent. So what is the right time to decide about feeding the baby? It is strongly believed that second or third trimester of pregnancy is the best time for parents to decide about feeding and how to feed their baby. As Dr. Uma has also rightly pointed out, that first half of the pregnancy, they are not worried about feeding. So it is recommended that second or third trimester is the right time to talk to them about feeding the baby. So with iDecide, they can be equipped with information that empowers them to decide about feeding, and much required support and services from the hospital where they plan to deliver. So what are the objectives? So we have seen that young mothers would be very apprehensive during pregnancy, whether their milk would be sufficient or not, and what will they do, etc., etc. So this portal was developed keeping in mind all those aspects and empowering the mothers to know about all the aspects of breastfeeding and being successful at that. iDecide is a web portal which has a 3-step approach. First step is the knowledge during pregnancy. Second is making an informed decision. And step 3 is tell your doctor. So first step is a very important step. Here we have 7 modules of knowledge. I will take you through these steps one by one. And after going through all these modules and she gains knowledge, she makes an informed decision what she wants to feed the baby. That decision she conveys to the doctor or to the facility where she plans to deliver. So in this knowledge step 1, we have 6 videos of 2 to 3 minutes each and 1 reading material. So this is for module 1, which is benefits of breastfeeding. It's a 2 minutes 16 seconds video. It tells about colostrum. It tells about all the benefits to the baby and all the benefits to the mother. Next is the early initiation of breastfeeding and skin-to-skin contact. So it explains very beautifully the skin-to-skin contact of the baby, and early initiation means the baby is put to breast immediately after birth, preferably, but at the most within 30 to 60 minutes, so that the baby, the journey to breastfeeding is successful. Because we all know that baby is very, very alert during the first hour of birth, and after that the baby goes off to sleep. And all the aspects of early initiation and skin to skin are covered in this video. So third module is positioning and attachment. This video explains about the good attachment, and it also differentiates between good and bad attachment, as Rekha has also shown, but it is showing in the video form. And also the position, what position mother can take while sitting down, lying down, any position she is comfortable with, it's all shown here. And it is explaining for normal vaginal delivery as well as cesarean section. Then we have module 4, safety and preparation of artificial suckling. In certain cases, when the mother is unable to feed and the donor human milk or expressed milk, breast milk is not available, so the only option left is to feed the child with the artificial milk. So though it is rare, but sometimes it is required. So this video shows how to make the artificial feed hygienically and safely, and how to store the prepared artificial feed, how to store the artificial feed. And it also tells about the dangers of artificial feeding, so which is very important. Next module is module 5 is expression of breast milk. So this is a 2 minutes 36 seconds video. It tells how to express breast milk manually. The breast pumps are not used and they are not recommended either. So when the mother is sick, she can't feed directly, or she has to go out for some urgent meeting. So she can express her breast milk, and somebody else in her absence can feed that expressed milk with a spoon or with a cup or with the palda. So this is very beautifully explained in this video. And how to store the expressed breast milk, that has also been explained in this video. So the last video is our module 6, how to be successful at breastfeeding. So this video explains about the 2 hormonal reflexes which are there for breastfeeding, prolactin and oxytocin. Prolactin is for making the milk and oxytocin is for squeezing the milk out. And these 2 are very, very important hormones. And this video explains very beautifully the role of these hormones and how, what are the things by which these hormones can be affected, which can lower the milk supply. So all this has been very beautifully explained. And this video also shows the diet of the pregnant woman, what diet she should be taking. So these are 6 videos. And next is the reading material, breastfeeding and complementary feeding, a guide for the parents. This is a 57 pages booklet and is available in 10 languages, including English. But for the time being, we don't have it in Tamil, but English is there. And this has been written by eminent authors. It contains all the aspects of breastfeeding. And the beauty is it also has a portion of complementary feeding. So when the child is around 6 months old, the mother can, take guidance on complementary feeding from this booklet. And it contains many FAQs, and it also addresses the issues of myths. So this is step 1, all the 7 videos, 7 modules, the pregnant mom and dad, they gain knowledge, and then they decide what they want to feed their baby, depending on this, after the gaining the knowledge. And suppose she has decided to breastfeed, and then a certificate is generated like this, that she has breastfeed. If she wants to artificial feed, it is written artificial feed here. So this is step 2, she makes an informed decision. So next 3, she conveys this decision. So this is a very small letters, I think everybody can see it. Here is the name of the doctor or the hospital. She can write down here and email address. And here is the body of the email which we have constructed, but she can, change it according to her own desire. And then she can convey this to the hospital or to the attending doctor. And she can request for certain services and support in this email. Suppose she has decided to breastfeed, she can ask for a partner in the labor room to assist her in the breastfeeding. Or if she has decided to artificial feed, she can, ask for hygienic and proper preparation of the artificial feed. So this is step 3. So these are all the 3 steps, and that completes the process. And after that, we have a dashboard. Here we have the quick links. she can refer a friend, she can share her feedback. And we have modules, again, we have modules here. She can see as many number of times she wants. Whenever she is in doubt, she can see these modules times and again. And she can download her certificate from here. Then there is a list of lactation counselors. This list is state-wise. She can choose a lactation counselor if she is in doubt or she wants some consultation. So she can choose a lactation counselor from here, or she can download this Stanpan Suraksha app on App Store or Google Play. This app also has a list of lactation counselors. And in case she is not able to find anything, she can contact our BPNI office, and we are always there to help her. This is the home page of our website. Here she can sign up and register for just rupees 199, one-time registration. And she can, go through the website and take advantage of its materials. So why the pregnant moms and dads should, log into iDecide? What are their benefits to them? You have access to authentic information. Why do I say authentic? Because these days somebody asked me a question, why there's so much material available on Google these days, but all that material is not authentic. Our organization is a 30 years old registered organization working on breastfeeding, and we are providing authentic information. And you can make an informed decision. You can convey to the facility where you are delivering about your decision. Then you can ask for certain services and support at the time of delivery, depending upon your decision. After all this, it will lead you to a satisfying journey about feeding your baby. And another thing, you can see the modules. Whenever in doubt, you can go to the dashboard and you can see the modules and get help. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind attention, and we are open to questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Rita, for that clear explanation of the iDecide portal. And now we have about 16 questions posted by our participants, and very interactive. So can I read out the first questions one by one, so that, Dr. Uma, Rekha, and Rita can answer, take them on. You have here, is it possible for the food we eat to affect the baby? And can the foods we consume make our baby gassy? Who would like to take that on? Uma? Who would like to take that on? Rekha?
Dr. Uma is taking it.
Either, yeah, go ahead, Rekha.
Yeah. Okay, so the food actually has no direct impact on the baby. So you can eat whatever you want, but moderation is the key. Our only concern is this handful of ghee, the gond ka laddu, we call it the high calorie dynamite. All that have to be avoided. Yes, we do know that breast milk, what is breast milk? The fat reserves in a woman's body is what is converted and given as breast milk. I think the previous generation even without knowing that, they've been doing that. But please understand that we have enough fat in the body. We don't need extra fat. On the same thing, please don't increase your carbohydrates too. See, many times out of our experience, we've realized that many times, a lactating mother can be ravenously hungry. because the calories are getting burnt. But please understand that many times it is only a thirst sign and not a hunger sign. So if you can just read the thirst sign well. Now, how do I read the thirst sign well? So even after you eat something, you keep drinking water, it only means a thirst sign. So just to put this in perspective, ensure that you don't miss out on any of your meals, your breakfast, your lunch, evening tiffin, night dinner, but play around with the quantities. In between, try to have some salad. So increase your proteins. The minute you increase your protein, you will realize that your hunger pangs can go down. So it's always better to do a wise choice of food. So our concern here is, our response to this is, whatever you eat is not going to cause the baby any gas. Because the Patya Sapade, we don't believe, we do believe in the Sattvic food, we do believe in Patya Sapade, but please remember it's depleted of protein. So if you can just include the protein, nothing like it. But answering your question in one line, it's absolutely fine to have whatever you want. It's not going to affect the baby at any cost.
Yeah, I think the next question is, how do we manage if colostrum is initial 2 to 3 days is not sufficient? I think most of the time the babies will do well, and the breastfeeding is a little bit of a demand supply. So the more the baby suckles at the breast, the more there is stimulation and more the brain understands that milk is required, and so the letdown will happen. So usually the first 24 to 48 hours, whatever you get is enough for the baby. And the baby generally manages to get more when the baby suckles than when you try and express and see whether there's enough milk or not. In some special situations, like if you have a very low birth weight baby, if you're diabetic, have needed insulin, the baby is at risk of hypoglycemia, then in those situations, medical advice will be given on what to do. Yes, Dr.
Sorry, I went offline.
You dropped off, yeah. So I took the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next question is also for you, Dr. Uma.
So the next one is, how does a mother identify that she needs help with regard to depression? And how does she recognize that she's going through depression? I think you recognize that you're going through depression if you feel extremely low, very teary, essentially crying without any reason, if you're completely not able to sleep at all. The other thing to notice is that if you're very, very anxious, if you start having negative thoughts, then these are all things that you have to discuss with your with the obstetrician and let her know that this is happening.
So how to identify our baby's stomach is full or not? This is one question which is very, very tough to answer. But, see, please understand that the baby's tummy is very small. Okay, so going by what I have seen in some rooms where some of these new grandmothers will say, why are ubbaveli? I mean, the tummy is not come out. The baby's tummy is just not, coming out. It won't come out. So the best thing to do is the first 2 days, we always say, go by the baby, not by the clock. This is to ensure that you and the baby are, comfortable with each other. But on the day of the discharge, we tell them, please go by the clock, not by the baby. Yes, each one of us come from the different school of thinking. But we also have to understand that the mother has to be happy, mother has to be comfortable, because babies love the breast. They can be on the breast 24/7. Right? So we'll have to ensure that the mother is not using the breast like a pacifier for the baby. Now, to answer this question straight, there are a couple of parameters that we do go by. The number of times the baby passes urine, because what goes in has to come out. So that will also ensure that the baby is getting enough milk. And two, the baby is not crabby. The baby is not, drowsy and missing too many feeds. The baby is sleeping through too many feeds. So these are signs of dehydration. So we do teach them in the antenatal class and right after they deliver. And is the mother's breast feeling full? Not all the times, at least once or twice when she's feeding on one breast, is the other breast leaking or feeling full? At least this is after 3 or 4 days after you deliver. And is your baby a normal newborn? Now, who's a normal newborn? Sleeps very well, wakes up and cries, okay, feeds, sometimes passes urine, sometimes passes stools. Now, right after the feed I'm talking about. So these are things that we do look at. Any discrepancy in this, the baby is not getting enough milk. So this is how we go by it. But having said that, each mother, each baby, and each family, they have their own, sets of rules there. But let me also tell you that, just treat the baby as a human being. Also treat the baby that the baby is new to the environment. So every time the baby cries does not mean the baby is only hungry. So if you fed the baby and even after that the baby is crying, look at the other parameters. So that will ensure that the baby is getting enough milk.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you've answered a couple of subsequent questions also in that,
yes.
in that response. Yeah.
Yeah. And
okay, so there is a question here is,
and that,
you want to take that? How many days once a baby pooping is normal?
Pooping is normal, yeah.
So the baby's pooping pattern will keep changing. So I think just as how they feed and how long they feed also will change in the first week or two. Sometimes the baby may, immediately around day 4, day 5, they may pass even after every feed, there'll be a little soiling. Sometimes they may pass even 6, 7 times in a day. Sometimes for 2 days, they may not pass at all. Both extremes are normal. If the baby's poop is very, very frothy or extremely watery and there's no solid matter, then you have to pay attention. Otherwise, as long as you're just breastfeeding, not giving any water and not giving any other top feed, you're actually doing good. You don't have to worry and equate that the baby's not pooped and therefore I'm not feeding enough. So, but pay attention to whether you're having wet nappies. So at least 5 or 6 times if the nappy is wet. And the gold standard is when you go back for a review, is the baby gaining weight. And I think that is what will tell you whether the baby is getting enough milk or not.
Okay, the next question, how to identify and purchase a good electric breast pump? Okay,
I think
so
there are a bunch of questions about pumping and freezing
pumping
in the end as well, Rekha. Maybe we can put them all together.
Yeah. Together.
Okay. So to answer that question of how to identify and purchase a good electric breast pump, whether it's electric or manual, we'll have to look at the flange size of it. So many companies, so our first request is please don't go in for any of these local pumps in the sense, a lot of these pumps which, can cause mastitis and can cause a lot of breast abscess. So I don't want to say the brand names here, but not to purchase, but the ones you can purchase are the Medela pumps are good because a lot of research R&D that goes in there. The Philips Avent pumps are good, the Pigeon pumps are good, and the new one is the new one that's come up. I'm sorry, I'm not getting the name now, but these are good pumps, and they also come with a nipple size, chart. So you can, it's also online, the nipple size chart. So you can measure your nipple and your areola with that, and then buy the breast pump. So that will help you with that. Okay. Then a Spectra is the other brand. So these are good pumps. And let me just go down and see if there are any other thing that's. Okay.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Normally we would not require a pump. You would not require to purchase a pump at all if you can learn the correct technique of hand expression. Hand expression, which doesn't give you any pain, but helps you to express anywhere at any time without having to worry about whether your pump is sterilized or not. And you don't need a pump. And some people have also said, in fact, one of the doctors yesterday's program said, she was able to express much better with the painless, with the hand expression than with a pump. So mothers don't need to buy a pump unless they're going to donate milk or something like that. Otherwise, normally they wouldn't require.
Yeah, we agree with that, Nirmala ma'am. So we also don't promote pumping. We do teach them hand expression. If they want to buy a pump and they come and ask us, these are the things that we do recommend.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. the next question, I have oversupply and fast letdown problem. Can some food one unknowingly consumes indirectly increase the supply? Sharanya, it's not about, see, there's some the hormonal things. The food does play a role, no doubt about it. But the baby sucking on the breast is the best stimulant to produce more milk. Now, if you feel that there's an oversupply and fast letdown problem, what we generally recommend, I mean, if the baby is comfortable, you can go ahead with it. But there are a couple of positions that you can do, which will ensure that the baby is not choking. So keep the baby in a slanting position. So you might be keeping the baby in a slanting position, your cradle or cross cradle hold. But if you can just elevate your, leg a little, so pop in a couple of more pillows, so it gives a more slanting position there. The second thing that you can do is if you feel that there is a formilk oversupply, you can also hand express, keep the milk aside, then put the baby on the breast so the baby gets the hind milk, and then you can keep the formilk later. So this will ensure that the baby gets both the hind milk and the formilk. Two, it will also ensure that the baby is not gagging or not, choking with the oversupply. Okay, so these are things that you can
may I
have
add
a look
one
at it.
point?
Yes,
Sorry,
ma'am.
sorry, please continue.
Yes, ma'am, I'm done. Please go ahead.
Yeah. One more point to help these mothers. She can just press above the nipple to just, slow down the milk flow.
Yes.
So that because milk gets collected just above the nipple in the sinuses, and she can just press there and the flow will just slow down. That is also one thing she can do.
Yes, ma'am. So just to add to that, just behind the areola, if you can just press a little, that's where the lactiferous sinus is there.
Yeah.
So it will help, okay, to control the flow.
It helps. Yeah,
it does help. Yeah. I want to take the next question. Visalakshi. I'm a new mother. Yeah.
Uma?
Muted.
Oh, Uma, you're muted. Dr. Uma?
Yeah, I'm just...
What is the question? Nirmala?
I'm a new mother.
And try to follow the instructions, learn the feeding classes. However, the baby's neck is still not correct.
Erect.
And it's very, not erect, and it's very difficult to fit the baby's head within the elbow. I use a pillow and try to keep one hand free to keep waking the baby as he sleeps in few minutes while drinking milk. Is that okay? Uma?
Yeah, so I think it's not an unusual problem. I mean, I think it takes a while for people to get a hang of how to hold the baby. And you can't quite adjust the baby's neck to fit into the crook of your elbow. You just have to, so that's why I think Rekha mentioned that there are alternate holds. So if you think that it is difficult for you to have the traditional hold and you're not able to, you can look at alternate holds. Now, however, there are some feeding pillows which give you that additional support. So there's nothing wrong in using the pillow to support and then have the other hand free so that you can use that to, keep the breast from falling directly over the baby's nose or to engage the baby. So it's quite acceptable to use a pillow, provided your posture is right and you're comfortable feeding that way.
Thank you. So the next question is, I used to feed my baby 5 to 6 times a day. How to identify whether baby is suckling milk properly or not, when to give formula milk, how many times can we give formula milk a day?
There are 3 questions in this. 5 to 6 times a day, yes, but we do recommend at least 8 to 10 times in 24 hours. This is to ensure that the baby gets enough nutrition. And a lot of new mothers will come and ask me, is it only during the day? What do I do in the night? Unfortunately, for a mother, there's no day night. So when we say 8 to 10 times, it's 8 to 10 times in 24 hours. Number 1. So please ensure that you do that. And of course, We do in the class tell you, but it's very ideal. We say 1:1:30. So what we mean by that is one breast during one feed for 30 minutes. So you also get a, kind of a protocol in place. So you're not confused about which breast you gave when. So, so let's say, for example, 10 to 10:30, you feed on the right breast. After 2 to 3 hours, feed on the left breast. So, just to get a hang of it. Once you get a hang of it, you can do whatever you want. But this is to ensure that the baby gets a perfect food, foremilk and hindmilk. Now, 2, how to identify whether baby is sucking milk properly. It's very easy. Once you get the position right, and the baby is latching on, you will find that that kind of a strong suck, strong latch on the nipple and the areola. And please remember, we're only talking about breastfeeding. We're not talking about nipple feeding. This is breastfeeding and not nipple feeding. We insist on that. So if the baby is going to unlatch or loosen that latch and go on to the nipple, you know that the baby is using it like a pacifier. Unlatch the baby, again, bring the baby back. Again, go back to the basics of ensure that the baby's mouth, when you bend down and see, your baby's mouth should look like an alphabet O, like a fish. So if this is the nipple and the areola, the upper lip here, lower lip here, and suction happens this way. See, at any point of time, my request to all my new mothers, which we always say in the clinic, is breastfeeding is a painless experience.
Ma'am, I'm not able to hear you.
You need to check your, I can't even write here. Okay. So, yeah. So you need to ensure that it's a painless experience. You have to ensure that the baby is sucking well. Okay. 3, when to give formula milk. Please don't give formula milk on your own. It's always done under hospital supervision. If you have a doubt that your baby is not getting enough breast milk, you need to check, call us. You need to check either with me or with the pediatrician and check if the baby really needs formula, and only then give the baby. And formula is also only top feed. Top feed is give the baby breast milk, on top of it, give the baby a little formula. Again, I think that answers the question. How many times we can give formula milk a day? It depends on why you have to give the formula, and then we will talk about how many times you have to give the formula.
Then, thank you so much, Rekha. Then sometimes the baby doesn't burp, or sometimes after burping it sleeps, for sometimes pukes while sneezing. Any suggestions?
Okay, so Dr. Uma's apologies because she's got a call from the hospital and she has left. So I will take those questions. Yeah, let me just go to that question. Sorry, I missed that question, ma'am. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. Sometimes it starts with the number 2 on it. Visalakshmi says, sometimes the baby don't burp, or sometime after burp and slept for some time, pukes while sneezing. Any suggestions?
Okay, so Visalakshi, if you're going to wait for a burp, it's an eternal wait. Babies are not going to burp after every feed, but nevertheless, irrespective of the number of minutes, the frequency, or the time the baby is on the breast, every time the baby goes on the breast and you take the baby off, please put the baby in the burp position. Okay, so cup your hands, tap the baby's back, stroke the baby's back for 10 minutes. If the baby burps, you're very lucky. The whole idea is babies are like cows. Many times they retain some milk in their mouth, they'll spit it out, and then you leave the baby down. Now, the second part of the question is, sometimes the babies can, kind of bring out that extra milk, which is perfectly fine. So nothing to worry about it. But unless and until it's a pattern and the baby is puking after every feed, you need to check with your pediatrician. But otherwise, it's perfectly fine for babies to spit out some milk. The next question, I'm pregnant by 7th month. They generally say your breast feels heavy and big, but I don't feel. So absolutely, you don't have to feel. There's no norm that the breast has to feel. They have to feel heavy and thing. And there's one other question which I read there, which I really hope somebody mutes Sarla. Yeah, I think she can't hear me because her audio is not there. Yeah. So Sarla Botra. So the thing here is going back, breast doesn't have, you don't have to feel the breast getting heavy. Even if the breast doesn't get heavy, it's perfectly fine. And please don't relate. It's not proportional. If your breast is getting heavy, it doesn't mean you're getting more milk. On the same accord, size of the breast really doesn't matter, okay, when it comes to breastfeeding. Okay, how to deal with colic issues? How do you identify its colic? Just because the baby cries doesn't mean the baby is colic. And just because this is like saying I'm feeling down, now everybody uses a umbrella term saying I'm depressed. So just because the baby cries doesn't mean the baby is colic. There are certain parameters and certain things that you have to look into. And just because the baby is restless and crying only in the evenings doesn't mean the baby is colic. Please check with your pediatrician. They will tell you if the baby is colic. And if the baby is colic, then you'll have to do certain things. I mean, things like you need to ensure that the baby is burping, you can rock the baby, you can swat, all that can be done. Then the medicine is of course given for colic only with the pediatrician's advice, please not on your own. And our request is please don't give, as we said earlier, please don't give any home medications, no traditional medications without the advice of the pediatrician. Hunger and sleep together, because of which baby is crying but not taking feed. So don't wait. So by now, I don't know how old your baby is, how many months old the baby is. You should know your baby's feeding pattern, approximately. So don't wait for the baby to get hungry. Probably start feeding probably 5 or 10 minutes earlier. That actually helps the baby. And puking overfeed, I think we handle that. And how do we know the baby has had enough? That's why we call it baby-led feeding. You put the baby on the breast, the baby feeds, and after some time, the baby takes the mouth away. Again, try to put the baby back. The baby refuses. It means the baby's tummy is full. Every time, it's not going to be 30 minutes. There are times the baby can feed only for 5 minutes. It's perfectly fine. Again, Visalakshi, I remember you met me in the hospital and examined my breast and asked me to wear a bra. Can you? Yes, braces are very, very important. One, because many of you land up with nipple pain because you're not wearing a brazier. Because please remember, the breast is getting heavy, right? So obviously, where the nipple will start hurting because the milk flows there. To your upper back, your back will start hurting you because of the weight forward. And your lower back will also start hurting you because you're going to hunch forward. So the brazier is always good. It has to support. It'll also prevent from any kind of an infection that can happen, the outside infection. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, wear one size bigger. But please wear a brazier, but no underwire braziers, please. And please avoid sports braziers because it will compress and it can cause mastitis later or an abscess. My breast has developed bigger brown area surrounding the nipple. Is that a concern? No, areola can grow in size. It's perfectly fine. If it is powdery, please don't clean it. Please don't rub it or clean it. Just probably clean it with warm water and cotton, but it's perfectly fine. How can I get the breast be in shape? Exercises will help. Please remember, breastfeeding doesn't sag the breast. Breastfeeding doesn't change the size of, change the, condition of the breast. Once you stop breastfeeding, the breast is going to go back to its original shape. So please don't have that fear in mind. Okay, the next question. Thanks a lot for your tips. You helped me how to feed and posture before my discharge. My baby is 2 months old. Initially, is using top feed, but for the past 1 week, I'm exclusive. Oh, excellent, Archana. My mom forces me to give top feed, saying baby is not going to sleep immediately. I'm adamant. Am I right or wrong? You're perfectly right, Archana. We support mothers who are pro breastfeeding and who don't want to give formula. Please go by that. As long as your baby is gaining weight, we're perfectly fine with it. Couple of more questions. I think we can close with. Yes.
Yeah. There's a question on I have a delivery. I've got delivery in a week. How do I know my breast milk is ready for baby before labor? That's some of the concerns that they have.
Okay. Yeah, ma'am, you want to take that, ma'am? Nirmala, ma'am?
Yeah. Your body is already ready for it. You don't have to worry about these things. The more you worry, the more you make yourself tense. Your body, and when you deliver, the milk, it will only come in small amounts, very small amounts, like little drops. And they may not look like milk at all. It may look glassy. It may look a little yellowish. Till the first 2 days, you have colostrum that comes in small amounts. So don't worry. Lots of mothers think, oh, I don't have any milk. And even on the second day, sometimes proper milk comes out. And when you just help them to cup their breasts and press it in the side, you see the spray coming out. So mothers immediately will know. You don't have to worry about whether your milk is going to come in. Yes, Rita.
One point I want to add, what she can be careful about is this skin to skin contact immediately after delivery and early initiation. So these two things, like when the baby is born, the baby is put to mother's abdomen, even before cutting the cord, and then the baby, then baby is put to breast, and these things will help in the milk to come. And there's no reason that milk will not be sufficient, because it is so natural. When the baby is born, the milk will come, but you don't have to give anything else. That is also important. Don't give water, don't give pre-lacteal feeds, or don't give anything else. Just put the baby to breast immediately after birth. So the milk will come in. There's no problem.
You want to add to that, Rekha?
No, I think we've answered that question.
My baby feeds only 5 minutes and then turns away. Is that okay? The baby's 1.5 months old.
Perfectly fine. As long as the baby is gaining weight, you're fine. Feeding the baby often, you're fine.
Yeah. And in the first 1 or 2 months, it's very frequent feeding. So that's a very normal situation. And baby stomachs are also very small at that time. Average period of storage period for breast milk that is pumped in freezer, and then one that's kept in the refrigerator, and one after taking it out of the refrigerator.
Okay. So though there's a universal rule of 4:4:4 in place like Chennai, because of the humidity, we don't recommend that. So if you're going to pump breast milk, that's called the express breast milk, you store it in a feeding bottle. But please remember, feeding bottle is only a storage unit, not a feeding unit. You can store it in a room like this where there's no direct sunlight coming in, 2 to 3 hours, not more than that. You can put it in the refrigerator, but please don't put it on the door, because every time you open the door and close the door, the temperature changes. It can, cause the breast milk to get spoiled. Put it in the milk tray, which is right under the freezer. You can put it there for 24 hours. You can keep it in the freezer for 3 months. But if you keep it in the fridge and you take it out, please, you can't give the baby cold milk. Neither do you boil milk, or please don't put it in the microwave. But show the bottle in the running tap water, or keep it in a bowl of warm water, bring it down to room temperature and feed the baby. If it's kept in the freezer, put it in the fridge for a couple of minutes and do the same. I don't know if there's any guidelines on this, but this is just out of my own practice. But if you take out some milk and the baby has had only some milk, don't put back the milk again. Okay, because once you thaw, it can get spoiled. But I think by then you know the capacity of your baby. Take only what you want.
And also, always store express breast milk in a stainless steel container, which doesn't have any rims or etc. Not in glass, not in plastic. And I would suggest not even in a feeding bottle. So you do get containers which you have no rims or no fancy, indentations. Because then if you don't wash them well, don't sterilize them, then you are going to get infections. So if you store milk in a glass container, what happens is the antibodies, they stick to the glass surface as a surface tension. And so some of the benefits of that milk will be stuck to the glass when you take out the milk for feeding. So, or preferably use a stainless steel container. And in our experience, we have found that you can store express milk in a stainless steel container, with a clean cover, and in a cool, dry place, not cold, not hot, not very humid, in a cool, dry place, in normal temperature in our in Chennai weather for up to 8 hours. Most people may not be doing it, but in the villages, in the rural areas where they go out somewhere, they do, even in the suburbs, they do use steel containers to store the express milk, and up to 8 hours, it's fine. You will not be away for 8 hours from your baby. If at all you have to go somewhere and come back, you'll be back within 4 hours at least. So I think that should not happen. And the remaining is for when you're storing breast milk and you're going to travel and all that thing, then I think, labeling it and keeping it, even when you store it in the freezer, you have to put the date on the container. Yeah, Rekha?
Yes, ma'am.
So that they know which can was taken when. So you according by the date you take it out.
We'll just take 2 more questions and close, ma'am, because
Yes,
we're getting,
yes,
yeah. So
yeah.
there's one question from Sharavana Kumar. Our son is 5 months old. He's taking breastfeeding regularly, but there isn't a day when he hasn't vomited at least 10 times. I hope, Sharavana Kumar, you've consulted the pediatrician on this. I think it's worthwhile talking to them. I'm not in a position to say if it's right or wrong, because you've said if not, what are we doing wrong? But I think, I hope you have consulted and we'll have to look into that. Okay. Probably you're overfeeding because you're saying that baby is gaining weight, but doesn't mean that the baby has to go through this of vomiting because it can make the baby very uncomfortable in the whole idea. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we can close with this, ma'am.
Yes, we can. And whatever is not answered, if there's anybody who can, like, for example, a child is, I think they need to go, as you said, they need to go to the pediatrician when it is an abnormal amount of vomiting or a abnormal problem. And there's one lady who says her breasts get hard and she develops temperature until the baby sucks it, and her baby is only 4 days old.
So,
Put the baby more frequently.
her breast might be getting engorged, the letdown.
Yeah.
That might be the letdown reflex, and when the baby suckles, it becomes all right. So
Yeah.
when the milk is coming in, she might be feeling hard breast.
Yeah.
It's perfectly normal.
Yeah, it's perfectly normal.
I would
now, I think, right?
True.
Yes.
I would just like to take the last question. Can we start solids from 5th month of the baby? No, please, you can wait. Why do you want to start with the 5th month? You don't have to. Please don't. And over and above this, I know this is the Sitapati group. So over and above this, I know a couple of the questions we couldn't answer. Thanks, Jay Chandrika, for the feedback. But you always have my email ID. Please write to me. I will respond there. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And one more piece of information I'd like to add is that all working women, in whichever place you're working, if you're working in the private sector in this country, you get 6 months paid maternity leave, provided that you have worked in that company for 12 months prior to the date of taking leave. So 6 months paid maternity leave. And when you go back to work, you have 2 nursing breaks in addition to the regular breaks that people have, all employees have. In addition to that, you have 2 nursing breaks for going and feeding your baby. And any company that has more than 50 employees, it is mandated by law from 1961, the Maternity Benefits Act, that the company organization has to provide a creche facility at the workplace. And you can also opt for flexi time or work from home, depending on the nature of your work. You can work from home after you continue, after your maternity leave. So there is no need for anybody. Earlier days, people used to say, oh, she will have to go to work. So we started the bottle, or we started the complementary foods earlier, solid foods. There's no need. Across the country, people are having maternity leave for 6 months. And those who are staying at home, you have all the time to feed. So there's no need to start solids earlier than that, or any other kind of food. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And I hope I think all of them must have enjoyed this session. And Rekha, I request you to send that presentation again. That is a wonderful presentation. And all the participants here, you are lucky to be at Sitapati Clinic and Hospital, because not every hospital provides you the kind of support that they are providing you for this for your pregnancy and for breastfeeding, infant feeding. It's a wonderful it was wonderful hearing about what Sitapati Clinic does. And you can also register at the I Decide and get more information, and which you can keep on, looking at whenever you want, and also to help you through this journey. So all the very best to everyone. This has been a really useful session, even from a person who's organizing. I feel, yeah, this has been good. And we thank all the mothers, all the people here for providing so much time, more than 1 hour on this program. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Nirmala. Thank you, Rekha.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
thank you
And
to
thank
all
you
the
to all.
mothers
Yeah,
coming.
thank you to all the
Yeah.
mothers. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, bye bye everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye bye.